Hello everybody. I'm having fun with my tripod, so excuse the close-up, or you can admire my new makeup. Either way. Hello everybody. Oh, there we go. As per usual, I am just going to take a second just to check I'm in the right place and check I'm actually live and the sound is working, because I'm going through my earpods. How is everybody? Oh, I can see some people. Hey Steph. Yes, I've got people. Epic. Hey Maddie. Oh my god, we're on. Happy New Year, everybody. Happy New Year. Oh, I was going for the tussled look today. I'm rocking a little bit more, maybe John Bon Jovi circa early 90s. Thanks Maddie. Oh, it's epic. I'm loving having a fringe, but I forget I actually have to do stuff with it as opposed to just turning stuff on, just tying my hair up and everything. How is everybody? Oh, Tracy, I've got some epic humans on with me. I'm so excited to dive into this because I haven't done training for ages online for free. I'm doing them every week with my epic one-to-one girls. And we're having so much fun, but oh my god, what a year. What a fucking year. And what a Christmas, and what a life we're in at the moment. And do you know what? We're in it together, we're in it by ourselves, and there's so much we can still actually do to really make the most of what is going on in the world, or the time and the space that we're given. So today is, I'm really going to just dive in because it's all about journaling. Journaling, my favourite thing in the world, the most underused. Oh, I've got Katie online. Oh my god. Oh, I've got some people messaging me and saying they can't get into the group. Just give me 2 seconds. But yeah, it is just my favourite thing in the world. It's the best tool in the world. I use it pretty much every day. I am surrounded by journals constantly. And I'm actually even just going through some training now, which is business training, which is all about bringing your turn on, bringing your sexual energy into my business even more than it was already. And even that's about journaling. And it's journaling in the way to turn yourself on. And every single person I speak to, but it's probably about a 70-30 split on people that I work with that start off and go, oh my god, I fucking love journaling. Where do I start? Tell me what to do. And then there's about 70% of people that go, I love, Tracy loves journaling, epic. But then there's probably about 70% maybe. I'm not so good at the statistics. Even though I did maths A level. There you go, fact you didn't know before. But the other side of people is they kind of go, oh my god, I just don't know where to start. I know it's a good tool. I used to journal when I was younger, or for me, when I was, if I roll back maybe 5 or 10 years and someone said to me, go and journal, I'd be like, what the hell are you talking about? I used to get a diary when I was a teenager, and I'd start off writing everything that I'd done in the day for the first couple of days of the year. And then by halfway through January, I'd completely given up on it. So it's been something that I kind of get it when there's a full blank page sitting in front of you and a whole world going on about, or when I say the whole world, maybe some other good people, go on about journaling, and you just don't know what to write, and you feel like you're really missing out on this powerful fucking tool. And it came about, let me just see. I feel like Facebook has changed. Is it just me, or has Facebook changed? Or is it just that I've not been on it that much this year? I think that's the key thing. I am just going to check in. I would love to know who is watching that also loves journaling or doesn't know where to start. Where are you right now? And even if you're watching on catch up now, I want to know exactly where you're up to with this whole journaling thing, because it's been such a huge part of my life, and it's been something that I can't do 2 things at once. This whole bullshit on women that can multitask. I don't believe it. I can't do it. How do you see where the group members are these days? Members. Oh dear me. I don't get notifications. Approve. 39 minutes ago. Emma Artage. Oh, some people I haven't heard from for a while. Hopefully the people that have just joined have, yeah, Katie, I know, good intentions and it falls by the wayside. Same with me. It doesn't happen every single day and that's something we're going to talk about. So yeah, I couldn't find where there's notifications for actually letting people in, which is a bit rude. And I think that's a bit rude of Facebook because I think it's really weird when we have these amazing little communities and they don't tell us when what people want to be part of it. Anyway, rant over about that. So today is all about this thing that I talk about, and I talk about in a way that kind of assumes you know what you're doing with it, or you've done it before, or you're already getting involved in it. And then I had this moment of, you know, realization so there's been a couple of girls that have started with me on my epic 12-week one-to-one program that have really had that whole, yeah, I just don't know where to start with this, or like, you know, I have good intentions and it kind of sometimes works and it sometimes doesn't, or I don't really know what to write, or, you know, Caroline, I just can't journal. And the amount of times that I've been working with girls and like, you know, somewhere halfway through, they're like, I think I'm actually journaling now. And I'm like, yeah, you are. Yeah, you are. Because one of my favourite things to get is when I'm working on a one-to-one basis with clients is that I literally get people to send like pages of their journal through, because you can see like photographs of their journal, because you see so much of like what's actually going on with people and the energy behind it. And there's such a strong energetic connection between writing with a pen and paper. But what I'm actually going to do, because I am right now, it's taking me somewhere else. Hang on a sec, just let me. Oh, I hate these management tools on Facebook on your phone. I'm like, no, just tell me what I'm doing and tell me where I'm going. So I can see comments now. Yes, we've got amazing stuff coming through. So as you can tell already, if you have not seen my stuff before, and this is one of the key things and reasons I love journaling, is because when I am not in flow, when I am not having like an amazing conversation with the client and actually really present and really engaged and grounded and all this amazing stuff, is like my head is everywhere. You know, when I first moved in with my partner, and he was just like, have you got a bit of ADHD? And I was like, absolutely. And this is one of the first tools that I actually found that really started to help. And I don't even know if it's just ADHD mentality brain, or if it's ENFP, or if it's just part and parcel of living in today's world, or maybe just being a woman, that we have so much stuff going on in our heads at such a huge speed that trying to unravel things. Now, even just looking at how a woman's brain works versus how a man's brains work, man's brain works. I'm not going to make any jokes about fucking that sentence up. Men are generally very singular focused. They have one task, they have one thing to do, and they do things very orderly and they're very compartmentalized, one thing at a time. Now with women, it's very different. We have everything going on in our heads at once. So starting to untangle that and starting to really make sense of everything and all the amazing intelligence and information that feels like just complete chaos sometimes, most of the time, starts with this practice. So what we're going to do today is go through why I journal on a really top level, and then I'm going to go through 6 of my favourite practices. And then those 6 practices I've put into a guide in a lot more detail. So if you haven't downloaded that already, I'll pop a link in at the end underneath this, or in the comments, or in somewhere around here. There will be a link so you can go and get hold of that as well. And what this does is, then the third part that I'm going to go through with you today is actually then how we actually really dial that up. Because what hit me like an absolute ton of bricks was earlier, somewhere between Christmas and New Year, I started going through some of my old journals. Now I have piles and piles of them. I've got you in a good place right now, so I'm not going to move you. But even just to my right now, I have my work notebooks and my client notebooks, and then I have my actual journals. So that's my last one, that's my current one, that's my next one. I'm surrounded by them constantly. And one of the things that I do, which I absolutely love doing, is actually burning my journals and getting rid of loads of stuff and getting letting go and all of that process. But before I do that, I go through and pull out any of the intelligence in there, because they are filled with so much stuff, from rambling to what I've been learning, to if I'm reading a book, the information that I've pulled out of it, if I'm doing a training course that isn't necessarily, just something online, or even just watching YouTube, or it goes into just like the brain dumps and all of the practices that I'm going to share with you, down to shopping lists and wish lists and stuff I'm calling into my life, and all of these different things. And one of the things that I absolutely love doing is going back in time and seeing where I am now compared to where I was maybe say 12 months ago. And this is exactly what I did a few days ago, a few weeks ago, whenever it was. And I pulled out maybe 3 journals from around the start of this year. So the first one that I pulled out was this big cheesy ring bound one with a life quote on the front, and it was really pretty. And I remember it because on my way home from Bali, so those of you who are new to me in this group and I've joined in this year, the last couple of years I've spent January or longer winter in Bali, because I love it. It's an amazing place, it's beautiful. Why wouldn't you if you can work wherever the hell you want in the world? And one of them, the ones that I pulled out, was this one that I had run out of journals on my way home. And actually one of my friends over in Bali at the moment was looking at, I think he's not setting a shop up at the moment, but he was like, we were talking about he's setting a coffee shop up, and I was like, you need to import journals, because it's so hard to buy beautiful journals in Bali, which is crazy considering there's so many people that are into self-development and coaching and all of this amazing stuff over there. It's just so bloody hard. And even the ones you get are really, really expensive and not that nice. So it was a bit of an ongoing joke, but I literally, when I was on my flight home, and I was flying home, I'd made the decision to move to London, and this was start of February last year. And I pulled this journal out, and it was this big cheesy one that I bought in WH Smith in Kuala Lumpur airport, because my flight had been delayed and I was there for like 17 hours or something like that, which sounds horrific, but I love being stuck in airports, and I love being on planes and stuff, because there's just like no noise, no other stuff going around, so I just get coffee and journal and read and all that amazing stuff. But what I started to pull out was where I was and what I was focusing on, and all the stuff that, it was the start of a new year, it was a big start of a new chapter for me, because I decided to put down some explore the possibility of creating a home in London. I'd spent the last 3 years kind of bouncing around all different places and having an amazing time, but not having a particular home, nowhere that was really my own. So it was all of these ideas that were formulating of what I wanted to call in, and planning adventures and all the events and everything that was going on. And one of the key things that I'd really, really been focused on and realised I was ready for was a relationship. And that when I started looking at the qualities of the person and the qualities of the relationship and what was really fucking important to me, and how I was wording that in my journals and how I was calling that in, it hit me like an absolute ton of bricks that this person that I've now fucking moved in with and created this epic London home. And, or, you know, if you saw my post yesterday, or if you're on my mailing list, it was a couple of days ago. By the way, if you get the journal stuff, you get to go on my mailing list, because there's all sorts of stuff with censorship, but that's happening around sexuality at the moment on Facebook and Instagram and things like that. So, but that's a whole different conversation. That'll be something I talk about in the next couple of weeks. But there was this description of this person, and it was, and I remember ages ago saying to him when we were kind of dating, and I was like, oh my God, this is really weird. And I showed him some of this stuff that was on my phone of the type of person that I wanted to call in, because he always used to say to me, like, you know, I'm not really your type. What's your type? And if you look at my sort of relationship history, like, I don't really have a type. You know, there's the joke I used to what I used to say to my friends, which was actually quite accurate at the time, and definitely was a nod to the kinky side of me, was, yeah, my type is guys that could kill me. And it kind of was, because, you know, there was a lot of, you know, military guys, there's a lot of, there was strong men, there was boxers, there was cage fighters, there was all that kind of really hyper masculine energy that was around people. But to look at, you know, you wouldn't even put these people in the same room together, never mind with similar features or any sort of type. So I remember going through this list that I had, and he was like, no way, that's fucking well weird, because it wasn't necessarily about physical features. It was more about how he made me feel, how I felt around him, how he was in his masculine, and he was leading me with his open heart, and he was choosing me, and not even just choosing me, claiming me. And for someone who'd played in the kind of open relationships, or, you know, thought that I would, you know, probably end up in this sort of poly or an open situation, actually it became really clear to me that I really wanted to be like claimed and in this monogamous situation. And it was, you know, we could travel the world together. There was so many big things, and then so many little things that just had appeared. And it really took, like, I know I take full responsibility for my life. I know that everything that is around me is, you know, has manifested from my own creation of what my desires are, of what my intentions are, what my beliefs are. And everything is here to guide me into what I'm here to do, my purpose and all of this type of stuff. But when it hits you that hard on something that is so significant, it really, you know, it not threw me, but it floored me. And I was like, this is fucking epic. Like, I knew this year was good, and I knew, thank you, Yaz, and I knew this was, you know, it was amazing that these things had happened, but it was happening in all this chaos and all this other stuff. You know, I've shared stories about, you know, how much had been triggered. There was a lot of trauma that came up at the start. There was all of this other stuff with the world changing that I hadn't really integrated and felt and embodied. How much of this was so in line with what I've been asking for. And you know, we've all done it when it's the manifesting a car parking space, or, you know, me thanking the universe for delivering me my mobile phone, which I lose on 15 times a day. But when it comes to the stuff that's really fucking important to you, and for me, you know, again, if you're new to this space, I had been basically single for about 10 years. So when it was something that was this big a shift, it felt incredible. And then obviously what happens with me, I get my geek on, and I get my geek on hard. And I was scouring the pages of what was the difference? And there was even at one point, the bit that really, and I was sharing it with Salim, it was this part where I talked about what he calls me, and I was like, and it's actually the same nickname that he calls me now, and it was just one of those moments. So getting my geek on, I really scoured through what was the difference, what were the points, what are the points that I can pull across and actually make sure that I can then use for the stuff that I haven't called in yet. And what is the stuff that I can then teach you guys that really helps us dial in these practices? Because there's a huge difference between just writing shit down on a piece of paper and making shit happen. And I thought that's definitely going to be one of my taglines that you're going to hear a lot of this year. So really, really want to go through as much as I can in the next hour or so, maybe less, maybe more, who knows. But really understand the different practices that I use and I teach and I go through. And this is one of the things I am so passionate about, is that I don't teach anything that I don't use myself or I haven't used at some point, or, you know, this is the difference I feel between sort of coaching and therapy, is that what I'm doing here is going, look, I've just studied a hell of a lot of stuff on sex. I've done a hell of a lot of stuff on personal development and creating a life that I love. And these are the tools that I use myself. And there's a hell of a lot of intuition and guidance and all of the magical stuff in there. But everything I teach you and everything that I do with my one-to-one clients are tools, practices, techniques that I use myself. And it felt so important going into another year to share that with you in more detail. And that's what I've done. So we're going to talk a little bit about why journaling, we're going to talk about the practices, and then we're talking about how the key differences between the stuff that's there, what's been called in, and what hasn't been called in yet. And it's really simple, but really not always the easiest to do. So it's just one of those things that it is so important for me to share this with you, but for you guys to really sit in and feel into what it is you want out of this year. What is it that really worked last year? What is it that didn't work for you? What is it what's the stuff that didn't work that really is guiding you into something different? And, you know, we're going to go through some of the practices now that are going to help you do that. So, first of all, if you've worked with me before, you'll know this stuff already, but it is never going to hurt you to go over it again. Why journal? Why journal? Firstly, slows the whirlwind. As you can tell with me, it is 1,000,001 different things that go on in my head. You know, my best friend Kate, she laughs at me sometimes and she sits there and she's like, I don't know what it would be like to be in your brain for a day. And I was like, probably quite exhausting. But I feel like that's actually, for a lot of us, how we, you know, especially with the amount of stimulation. And I'm not just talking the good kind of stimulation. I'm talking about the constant attachment to phones, to light, to television, to laptops. There's always so much stuff that's going on around us, and our brains haven't evolved to deal with this level of information. On top of that, how women's brains are wired, and we are, you know, very much in that whole, as I say, compared to men. And we can go into the evolutionary side of this, and I think it's really interesting, but maybe not for now. But really understanding that for men, it's like very singular focus. I have a job to do. It's like with my partner, if he's doing the hoovering, bless him, he does the hoovering, but if I ask him about something a little bit later on in that day, and it's not the task that he's doing right now, it discombobulates him. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna ask that important question later on. And I've learned to ask ask when it's actually good for him to have those conversations, or to ask if it's okay to disturb that singular focus, because men don't have that ability to, well, I guess it's kind of multitasking in a way, which I talked about at the start of me not being able to do very well, but actually understanding that part of our evolution is constantly keeping this almost like peripheral but much wider vision on everything else that's going on around us. It's not just about this individual task, it's about, maybe it's, you know, tied into looking after children and keeping an eye on what's going on there. Maybe it's tied into the fact that women in tribal times created safety from connection and bonding with other people. So actually keeping that kind of, almost like a radar, this like beep, kind of scanning around to see what's actually going on and assess for threats and assess for how other people are feeling, how people are responding to us, what's actually going on. Understanding that our communication, with the way we've been brought up in the modern world, is, you know, to be direct and to be, you know, especially when it comes to our own needs, and actually expressing what we want and what we desire has been squashed out of us. You know, we've been taught that, you know, if you're expressing what you want, you're a direct, you're a bitch, you're a ball buster, all of this type of stuff, which makes things very complicated when we start mixing with men, but that's a whole different conversation. So we have a lot going on. So just by physically starting to write stuff down, what you're doing is creating, one, that singular focus that doesn't necessarily come naturally to us. Two, it really does slow us down, because you cannot write at the same speed, or if you do, I mean, no way you can write at the speed of what your head kind of goes off and on about. So it slows you down. There's also something very cathartic about the energy exchange. And what I mentioned before, of when I'm reading my my clients' journals and when I'm reading my own stuff, I'm feeling the energy in there as well. If that's a little bit too heady for you, I think of just imagine that, you know, these thoughts are electrical currents that are going around your brain faster than the speed of light. That's true. I'm sure that's a fact. So you've got this electrical current, which is an electricity charge, which is energy that's flying around your brain. But then if you transfer that through to the movement, to the kinesthetic movement from your body to the pen to the paper, it's actually almost pulling it out. I see it as that release and that letting go. So for me, that has such a cathartic effect as well. So as a very top level, it's just a really, I mean, another way of looking at it is, you know, it's a meditative practice. You know, if you look at very Eastern traditions, you know, meditation and things like that are very much all about up in your head or in your soul or in that space within. It's that internal focus. But if you then start looking at more did I say Eastern then? Did I say Western? Really doesn't matter. Eastern traditions, the meditation, so the internal gaze. Whereas if you go to the more Western traditions, things like Stoicism, that's all about writing things down, but it gives you that same level of focus and that same ability that meditation does, which all it is doing is translating and teaching yourself that a thought is just a thought. So much of how we've been brought up and how we live our lives before we ever start doing any of this internal work is we believe our thoughts are true. We believe our thoughts are us. But meditation is a way of separating that out and realizing that we are not our thoughts. But for a lot of us, that's quite difficult anyway. It's quite, you know, if it's not something you've done before, it's a difficult practice to get into. I love it now. I'm there and I'm meditating most days, but actually getting there took a long time. And journaling for me was such a route into that, because it is exactly the same thing. You are taking thought, you're writing it down, and you're realizing that thought isn't necessarily real. So we've got that level there. Then the next part of it is what is so important is understanding that we have the ability to change, how do I word this properly? Get out of my head. That's the key thing. Stop trying to think about it. We are constantly creating our reality. Now, if you are down with the spiritual side of things and you're really into manifestation and creation and all of that side of things, that's going to come like a really natural thing for you because you may have studied or gone into the law of attraction. If, like me a few years ago, I was completely like, no, don't get any of the woo-woo shit, it's all a load of bollocks. Very different to where I am now. Very different to where I am now. But I still have the very physical, very human part of me that wants the understanding of how that actually works within my brain. So I experience the divine, the esoteric, the out there hippy dippy shit, but then I actually look at how it impacts our nervous system, how it impacts our bodies, and how actually that really lands in our existence. And so if things like law of attraction and manifestation are a little bit out there for you right now, there's something called your reticular activation, which is your confirmation bias, which is part of your brain, which really is part of how our human brains operate. That when we actually see something, I'm seeing so many people pop up. Hello everybody, as you're joining in, let me say hello, let me know where you are, let me know if you're used to journaling or if this is something that you're just diving into for the first time. But understanding that we have part of our body and neurobiology that is called, I say, reticular activation, and it performs something called confirmation bias, where our brain is constantly looking to seek out something that is familiar, it recognizes, it is safe to us. So when we are, the most common way you know about this is like when you buy a red car, then all of a sudden you see red cars everywhere. It's that confirmation bias of your brain seeing something familiar and actually seeking it out in the world around you. But what this means is that whether it's from a scientific and a biological perspective, or we're talking from a manifestation perspective, our brains are constantly able to create our own reality. So we have two options in the world. We have the option of kind of how we've been brought up. Most of us have been brought up that life happens to you. It's like whatever is going on in the world happens to you, and we are this basically victim of circumstances. Or we have the ability to choose what reality we step into ourselves. And so much of, I'm going to pause on that for a second, because that is one of the most empowering things that we will ever learn. That is the changing point for every person that I work with, for my own journey, for anyone that is in the self-development world. That moment where you realize you actually are responsible. And I used to hate the word responsible. I've got such the rebel archetype in me. I never did my homework on time. If you tell me what to do, I'm going to do the opposite. I've got that real rebellious streak within me. So the word responsible, oh my God, I used to hate paying bills. I used to hate anything that was that meant that I was a responsible human being. But then when I heard the reframe of responsible is actually just able to respond, you're choosing how you want to respond, this is where life gets fucking interesting. Life gets fun. We're not this victim of everything that is going on, which is so relevant to the world right now. Is if you watch the news constantly, if you're reading newspapers, if you're listening to what is going on in the world right now, the world feels like a horrifically scary place. Whereas if you are able to turn inwards and actually choose so I'll go into that a little bit more detail. So if all you're doing is watching the news and you're seeing that there's And I was listening to an amazing podcast with Aubrey Marcus and a guy I can't remember, but it was, I think, his latest podcast on health. He's got a new book out. It's fucking awesome. And they were talking about the pandemic and everything that's going on, and the news that's being reported now is, you know, they're talking about the percentage of people that have died. And don't get me wrong, heart going out, it's a horrific situation for a lot of people to be in. But we're not talking about the people that are surviving and their immune systems and the things that are doing that are actually helping them. So can you see there that if you are looking from an either manifestation or a reticular activation, if you're constantly surrounded by shit and news and threats and all of this stuff that's going on right now, you are then, your whole biology and your whole makeup is going to be seeking out more of that, seeking more threats, seeking more things that we are victim to. Whereas if you flip that round, and once you realize you are able to choose, you can actually start your day, preferably start your day, but I don't start my day every day, but most days I am going to check in with my journal, and this is how I do it. We can actually choose the stories. We can choose the reality that we are programming into our brains that allows our brains to seek that out in the real world. Whew. So, understanding we get to choose, and then understanding again why I use journaling so much and I'm such an advocate of it is because when we are writing something down, so going back to neurobiology, is like how we program our brains, how we tell ourselves a different story, how we learn something new is by laying down neural pathways. And there's two ways we can build those neural pathways is repetition. So by doing something over and over and over again, that neural pathway gets stronger and stronger and stronger, and eventually it becomes the path most followed. And our brains always go to the path most followed. So the most told story in our brains, whatever that is, where it doesn't care whether it's positive or negative, or if it's having detrimental impacts to your life or any of this, it will just go to that one story or that one belief that we go down the most. So if that's something that is not serving you right now, not feeling good, not being beneficial, it's not how you want to live your life, what you have to do is then tell yourself a different story. Two ways to reprogram: repetition over and over and over again. It's like lifting a weight up. It gets stronger and stronger and stronger, and then it becomes automatic. The second way is to add exactly, Vanessa, exactly that first 30 minutes. If you can do it, first 30 minutes, but also one thing that I'm going to shout out to all the perfectionists out there. I am the breed of perfectionist that is if I don't do it perfect, I am not doing it at all. So I am one of the stories, that's a story that I tell myself, is like that I just do it anyway. If I've missed a day, no drama, I'll do it anyway. If I haven't done it first thing in the morning, I'm just going to do it later on. It's fine. It's still as good as doing it first thing. Well, ideally first thing in the morning. Anyway, I digress. So understanding that this repetition or strong emotion. So there's two things that we can do within our journaling and our writing stuff down is that one, just by understanding that you're writing something down, there is a level of repetition there straight away. It is literally from your head, that thought is once, you write it down, it's twice, and then you are automatically reading it back as you're writing it down. So just the process of writing this down lays that neural pathway down 3 times as opposed to just the once if it was a thought. So that is one of the reasons it's so powerful. But also then what we can do is when we are telling ourselves stories that are really exciting to us and turning ourselves on, we can evoke a strong emotion by telling that story. So that emotion, whether that is, and again, it doesn't matter whether it's a strong negative, perceived positive, that's a whole different conversation again. But it's that when there's a strong emotion, that neural pathway gets laid down a lot stronger as well. So you know if you've had a really scary, something really scary happened to you in the past, you'll remember that over something that was just okay, or a little bit not so good. So that's why I love journaling. That's it. It's a phenomenal tool that is accessible to everybody. Now, I work with people, and we go into 4 figures if you're working one-to-one with me. There's loads of different options in there, but even if you haven't got the funds available, you can go to Poundland. Most of us can go to Poundland and go and get a journal for a couple of quid. I am a huge fan of beautiful Christian Dior journals. Some of them are 30 odd quid from posh shops. Some of them are £9.99, £5 from TK Maxx. It doesn't really matter. It is there. It is always available to all of us. So it is an incredibly powerful tool. So I think by now you've probably guessed that I'm quite down with it. I'm quite up for them. I do this a lot. And it is something that I do teach all of my girls. So what I'm going to do now is just dive into a top line on 6 of my favorite practices. If you haven't already downloaded the journaling guide, I'm going to put a link in this at the end. It's fucking awesome. Like I had an intention that I set, and if there's been anyone here that's been here from the start, like, I used to hate writing. I'm really bad at spelling. And again, it's a story I tell myself. It's probably something I can work on. But spelling and grammar were never my strong point. So I always thought I would be really bad at writing. And if you look at some of the stuff when I started, I was so nervous about writing about sex or talking about sex online that half of it was in fucking gobbledygook. But now one of my clear intentions for my business is having stuff that is beautiful and effectual. And this is so far one of my favorite things that I've produced. And it's just a PDF. It's just a PDF download. It's 11 pages, but there's such like even Kay, who looks after my marketing and background stuff, and best friend in the whole wide world, amazing girl. Even as she's uploading this thing for me, she's telling me that she's using it. I say that's the good thing about working with me, is you get all the techniques and tools and everything that you get that I normally charge for. It's not so bad. Anyway, it's an epic guide. So if you haven't got that already, please just bob your details in there. If you don't want to continue with the emails afterwards, click unsubscribe. I will not be offended at all. But what that is doing at the moment is adding people to a mailing list. As I mentioned before briefly, there's a lot of censorship that's starting to happen right now. So we are just being really careful to make sure that I am creating a community that isn't just based on a social media platform, because these things can disappear at the drop of a hat. As much as I love this and I think it's an incredible place to hang out and talk to you guys, just in case something like that happens, I am pointing people in the direction of a mailing list now. So as I say, get the guide, get all the practices. If you don't want any more emails off me, just unsubscribe. There we go. That's that. I think that's as good legally marketing that I ever do. Quite proud of myself for that one. I feel like a grown-up, a responsible grown-up. There you go. So 6 practices. Download this. It's going to make a lot more sense to you. Oh my God, my laptop. This is why I was a little bit late before. It's ready for an update or something. So it's taking its sweet time when I open stuff. So beautiful journaling guide. Read it through. You've got some interesting stories in there as ever. But the first thing, I'm just going to dive into this a little bit about getting started, about getting a journal that makes you smile and a pen that you love writing with. There's a reason I say this, not that it's just fun, because it's fun. We all love paper chase, we all love TK Maxx, we all love beautiful journals, we all love pens that we like writing with. But there's actually a benefit to this which goes deeper than that, is if you are in a position where you are, one of the things that I've just talked about is neurological pathways. So laying down as many neurological pathways to pleasure and experiencing joy and experiencing things that turn you on is so crucial to having a turned on life, that you are completely creating everything that you've ever wanted, the relationships, the sex, the orgasms, all of that good stuff that you've ever wanted comes from experiencing as much pleasure. So one of the easiest ways to lay down those pleasure pathways is to do as many things during the day that turn you on and give you pleasure. So for me, the journal has to make me smile. It's beautiful. I'm really picky about the type of paper that I write on. The pens, I always use these Uniball eye pens. They suit my handwriting so well. They make me smile. They turn me on as I am writing. This separation that we have, that pleasure and sexual pleasure and turn on are separate to life and stuff that we actually enjoy, is what causes so many issues with our own sexuality, and especially female sexuality. Where I start with people when I'm working with them is building as much pleasure into every single day as possible. So for me, with your journal, really fucking important. There's some stuff about what we talked about, how to create a beautiful space. Maybe you want to connect in first, you turn yourself on in a way first, and I absolutely love this because this is something I've started to do within my business as well, which again, learning to practice what I preach. Tracy, I want a picture of your handwriting with a great pen. I want to see. Even for me, which is what I teach on a daily basis, is we build as much as things that turn us on. So we're on this beautiful low simmer of turn on, and we can access that so easily. And our brains are so programmed into the neurological pathways that are most followed are always to do with pleasure, that even for me, like I'm diving into this in so many ways within my business now, and finding a way to turn yourself on first before you journal is something that I have introduced so much more for me, and not just for when I journal, but from when I'm writing anything, from when I am stepping into a client call, stepping into a pitch. I've got so many different projects that are going on outside of this space now. Before I'm stepping into a room full of women and I'm talking about delicious orgasms and libidos and female empowerment and all this stuff that I get to do, is activating this turn on first. And it doesn't have to come from, full on masturbation. It can come from, a beautiful space around you. Now I've moved into this beautiful London, and I've got a spare bedroom that, he's converted into this beautiful office for me. Oh, I have been talking a while. I'm just going to grab a charger. That point with your phone that the charge seems to go. This was fully charged when I started before. But yeah, so finding ways to turn yourself on supercharges this in the most epic way. And by turning yourself on, as I say, it can be some tips in here in the book, like, it might be dancing, it might be turning on putting your favourite music on. My latest, my Christmas present, noise cancelling headphones. Oh my God, they're amazing. Your surroundings, your scents, even just putting makeup on, or, wearing some perfume, like breast massage, breath work that activates your pelvic floor, so your pussy breathing, 2-minute touches, 2-minute tingles where you're actually activating and turning on your body in the shower in the morning. There's all of these different things that will really ramp up this practice of journaling. And even though that's mentioned in a brief paragraph in the book, I really want you I really want to highlight that, because I don't want to just tell you stuff that's actually already in the guide. You can go and read that yourself. So I'm just going to mention resistance as well. I love resistance. Like, she's a fucking bugger. She turns up. And I just want to explain something around that. What I mean by resistance is that sometimes called the saboteur. I don't like that term so much because it's not necessarily, there's a lot of evil, bad person, evil villain kind of connotations to that when you say that word. resistance for me, not just for me, but a lot of like resistance, what I mean by that is that when you say you're going to do something and you don't do it, we've all talked about it at the start of the conversation here before, was like, oh yeah, it's a practice that I have. Oh, hello Ray, hello my darling, good to see you. When this shows up, it is that voice, that thing of, I will do this, like I'll go to the gym tomorrow, I'll do that exercise that Caroline sent me the other day, I'll do that tomorrow, I'll journal tomorrow, I'll read that book tomorrow. It's that voice that we put things off and off and off and off and off. Now, there's a lot of school of thoughts that are out there of like, oh, if we're in resistance, it's not something that is, entirely aligned, and you'll, especially from a lot of like the woo-woo community, the spiritual community, there's this, oh, I'm in resistance, and it's this thing of, oh, it means that it's not aligned and it's not on purpose. And I call absolute bollocks on that. There's been some epic books that have been written about this, particularly by a guy called Stephen Pressfield. War of Art, amazing book on this. Basically means that voice only shows up when you are on purpose, when you are doing something that is expansive, that is growing, not just you as a like learning something on a very physical basis, but it's expanding you as a being. It's taking you to your most authentic version of yourself. Now that is so crucial to the when we talk about libidos, and we talk about connection, and we talk about the ability to connect to another human being, or the our ability to have amazing orgasms, and to, if you talk about just real basic stuff of what people approach me with is, an inability to orgasm or difficulty orgasm, a loss of libido, being stuck in relationships on, that have the same kind of fuckboy over and over again, or being in a long-term relationship with the man that you absolutely adore, but he's turned into your best friend and it's lost that chemistry and that spark. This isn't just about learning tips and techniques about how bodies work and how to touch yourself, which are all epic, and I teach them anyway. I'm not going to deny that stuff to you. It's all amazing fun. But the more and more I've worked with women over the years and years, it's like that disconnection for this libido for life, and the libido through the bedroom is actually a disconnection to who we really are, our soul, that real authentic version of us that isn't necessarily aligned to this. We grow up, we meet somebody, we fall in love, we get a dog, we get a house, we have babies, and then we live happily ever after. That escalated life that we have been taught that will make us happy. But actually, there's so much more stuff, and our own personal journeys are so personal to us that when we were experiencing difficulties within the bedroom, so often it is a disconnection to our authentic self, and it's a disconnection to who we actually want to be in the world. So understanding that when we are taking steps towards that, and that's what I mean by expansion, when we are taking steps towards that real connection to ourselves first, this little voice of resistance is going to show the fuck up, because it always does. It's part and parcel of this human journey that we go through of expanding into who we really are. And understanding that the big difference between something not being right for us and us being in resistance is really simple. Imagine it being done. Imagine it being completed. Does that feel exciting? Does that feel expansive? Does that draw us in? Or does that make us feel flat and disconnected and bored or icky or turn us off, whatever way it is? If when we imagine it being done, that means we are in resistance and it is expansion that we are moving towards, it's always going to show up. The easiest thing to do is just book it into your diary. I have reminders that come up for me now of just like journal prompts that I do you know, for me, it was always around money stories and things like that. You know, after I'd done a lot of the sex side of things, that was the next thing on my list of things to explore. So I still have reminders for things like that coming up. Journaling to me has now become so automatic that I don't really have to think about it, but I do notice if it doesn't happen. So making it as enjoyable as possible with all beautiful pens and experiences. And for me, it's, you know, obviously not right now, but so often it is about going to a beautiful coffee shop and spending some time there, creating an experience around it. So they were the 2 notes for the start off with. Practice 1, getting it out. This is really simple. Just do this every now and then, like once a week, twice a week, start off with it. It is just about that first practice of slowing things down and being okay with what's going on in your head. You know, I've shared with my clients some of the stuff, like if I don't get out the fucking bullshit that goes through my head, that I'm failing at life, that everything's going to shit sometimes, that I'm fucking everything up over and over and over again, that you know, that real dirty nasty voice that screams at you sometimes, if you don't just get that out, if I don't write out the conversation or the argument that I've just had with my partner and like break it down and make sense of it, you know, it just spins over and over and over and over in my head. It's the simplest, but it's the one that we get so stuck on because we get faced with a blank piece of paper. So I've just given you a fucking I'm giving you a couple of clues, guys, to get started there of like, what do I need to write today? And the easiest thing to start off is just start writing with this. It is a case of writing. I have no idea what to say. I have no idea what to write. This is stupid. I can't believe Caroline's told me to do this. I still don't know how to fill it in a piece of paper. It's writing whatever that voice is saying in your head and seeing where that goes from there. That level of brain dump, that level, if you are struggling with anxiety, it's an amazing way of just getting it out of your head, because then we can then you can pick it apart that much more easily. Is this really true? Is this actually happening? Is this what's going on right now? It might just give you some guidance on something that you really need to do, or something that's been playing on your mind there. It is just this combination of meditation and brain dumping and letting go that's so simple and so easy to do, but it's going to feel difficult because of the resistance that's normally attached to it. So that's number 1. Number 2. Practice number 2 is core desired feelings. Oh, I love this. Right, especially this time of year, really, really, really important that we so often set goals around what we want to achieve. What this is directing us to is the feeling that goal is going to give us. So if you imagine like every part of your life, so I've given you like a load of like different areas of your life, whether that's relationships, whether that's business, money, travel, whatever those different areas of your life that you're looking to grow into or take control over, or not stay in victim mode from, actually writing out what a 10 out of 10 would be, what a fuck yes would be. Now, so many of us then get stuck in this, well, I can't be happy until I'm 10 out of 10. What this is inviting you to do is flip that on the head and actually realize that when we're setting goals, that we are chasing a feeling. When we say, I want to get into my size 12 jeans in the next 2 months, it's because you want to feel sexy, you want to feel confident, you want to feel healthy, you want to feel strong, flexible, all of these different things. When you talk about, I want to have a 6-figure business, it's like, well, actually that's because I want to feel free, I want to be able to travel the world, I want to be able to give back, I want to be able to help hundreds of thousands of people, whatever these things is. There's a feeling attached to every goal, but when we focus on the goal, we are missing out on the feeling. So when we identify and jam on this, when I talk about jamming, I'm talking about literally what musicians do. It doesn't matter. Key thing with writing in your journal is always going to be, it doesn't matter what you write. it's not for anybody else's eyes. It is only for you. It doesn't have to make sense. It doesn't have to be beautiful. Like, I used to get like so jealous of these people who do these beautiful bullet journals, and like mine look like absolute carnage. They don't even make sense. Like, I wouldn't even be like, I'd be pretty open to Salim reading pretty much anything that's in the journal, because I'm very, very open with him. At the same time, you probably couldn't understand most of it, because it's not for anyone else's eyes. It's for me. I don't give a shit what it looks like. It's understanding that, I've gone. I love this. If you're new to me, you get my etch-a-sketch moments. When you have an etch-a-sketch, the old 80s toys, and you shake them and it just goes blank. Happens all the time. If it's important, it comes back. But anyway, so what we're doing with core desired feelings is understanding that when we have a goal, it is the goal is actually there to evoke a feeling. But when we understand what that feeling is, what we can do is then bring that feeling in as many times as possible during the day. So there's some amazing little activation prompts there for you to start exploring how it would feel, what those feelings are, so you can then ask the question of, how do you want to feel each day? So for me, a tweak on this one, a dial up on this one, is going to be, and I really got this from myself, and actually really diving into who I am as a sexual person. Who is that sexual persona that I have, one originally completely buried and hid away until she burst out all over the place in loads of chaos and carnage in my 20s and early 30s. Then who is that amazing person that I cultivated and actually finally taught to be for myself, not for just for other people's pleasure. And then all of a sudden realizing that part of me isn't just for in the bedroom when I'm having sex with a partner or playing with myself. It's actually the energy that I want to experience in any other part of my life. So realizing that my core desired feelings are things like magnetic, badass, naughty, having these words, these feelings of my drivers, no bullshit. I had truth up as this like really esoteric word. Not esoteric, you know what I mean, but like very divine, beautiful, very spiritual truth kind of word. It's a very, very powerful word, don't get me wrong, but for my version of that, it's no bullshit. So finding those the feelings that we're trying to evoke, and then having those as our intentions for the day, allows us to, one, start feeling the way we want to feel on the journey. So we get to do that whole enjoy the journey, not just the destination bullshit that we see on Facebook or Instagram. It's like understanding that we get to experience that now. And yeah, I might feel really sexy and confident when I can fit into my size 12 jeans, but actually today, if I just put some winged eyeliner on, I'm also going to feel extremely sexy and confident. And or if I jump on a live and I teach you guys, or if I flirt with my partner, there's a million different ways of getting to that same destination when it is about the feeling. So that is where this one is about. But as I say, invitation to dial it up is all about taking it into the bedroom and pulling the bedroom version of you out of that. So I might share some more words over the next few days, see how you feel with that. Practice number 3, supercharge your self-worth. This is fucking brilliant. This is brilliant. And this ties in really, really well. Girls that have worked with me before, and I've probably taught it in this group at some point. Definitely if you've been to some of my live events, we've talked about your authentic voice. I was teaching it in one of my amazing friends, Yasmin's soul school the other day. And that's where you're actually tapping into your body as guidance. Again, this is for another time. But actually your body's always going to tell you what's right or wrong, what's aligned and what's not aligned. But actually understanding that in this supercharge of self-worth is we're looking at the little things that we can do on a daily basis that are actually going to help us feel turned on and feel really good about ourselves. This is extremely simple and extremely powerful. it mixes numbers. If you were with me last year when I did my end of decade review, we did this as part of the practice in that. If you want to dig through this group, it's in there. But really what we're talking about here is, listen out. It mixes numbers, and I love numbers. I mentioned that before. It came up for a reason before. That's why. And you know, dirty little secret. It's like I used to do I did maths at A-level. I love a spreadsheet. I love numbers. They make sense to me. So for me, having a grade out of 10 makes it so easy for me to figure out where I am and what I can do to make it better. One of the questions later on in this is, you know, how turned on I am today out of 10. If I'm a 1, I'm going to do something about it. If I'm a 10, I'm going to do something about it. Anyway, so listing out what you've done in a day and then giving each score giving each thing a score out of 10. Then find the average. If you're not good with numbers, how we do that's in there as well. And that's literally, once you've got an average of everything that you've done in a day, of how aligned it is to you, how much it turned you on, how good it felt to do that thing. And then you've got the average of all the things you do. That's kind of a good, not kind of, it's a really good indication of how much stuff you're doing for yourself. If you are getting an average of like 1 or 2 or 2.47 or whatever it is, 2.47, it's a number of something. Don't know where that came from. But it's that understanding that the more stuff that you're doing during the day, the more stuff that is right for you, the more stuff that is turning you on, the better you're going to feel, the more you are valuing yourself, the more you are valuing yourself to do the stuff that feels good to you, the better you're going to feel. Fucking epic tool. Don't need to go into that anymore, just do it. There's a lot in here. Ooh, this is a good one. This is a good one, especially as a reminder, and for anyone else that isn't, that hasn't worked with me before, and especially if you're new as well. Power up. Understanding that energy, sexual energy, orgasmic energy, turn on your libido, your lust for life, your creativity, pleasure, your gratitude, manifestation, source energy, connection to yourself, love. All of this is the same energy. It's such an important thing for us to realise, because we've been taught that sex is this thing that is completely separate to our lives and is only for, you know, when we're married and we have this long-term partner, and it's got to look a certain way, and anything outside of that's dirty, disgusting, wrong, and if you enjoy sex, you're a slut and you're going to go to hell. All the good Catholic girl stuff that I got. Maybe not taught directly, but certainly inferred. And all the bullshit that goes on around sexuality and female sexuality, which you know I've ranted about so much, and I will continue to do so because it's a huge part of what I teach, is how to reframe those messages and how to really dive in and understand what your belief around being a sexual woman is, and how to unravel it and create it for yourself. Is understanding that sex isn't about this procreation or a partner's pleasure or just having the odd orgasm. I mean, that's all stuff that's great and good and important, but actually understanding that sexual energy is core to who we are, core to our confidence, core to creating a life that we really fucking love. And why I mentioned stepping into that turn on, like even before you start journaling, is so important. Drop into this and understand this is your superpower. The more stuff you do that evokes that energy, all of it. This is one of my favourite journaling tools ever. It's just jamming out the stuff that turns you on, and doing more of it means that you're going to experience more of it, because we've talked about how our brains work. Whether it's manifestation, whether it's reticular activation. The more stuff we do, the more we recognize it and call it into our experience. So, especially if you're in a position right now where after lockdown, after everything, you feel like your libido is, what was the phrase that one of the first time I did an online training, flat as a fart. one of the girls like used to describe her libido. If that's where it is right now, yes, I've got a shed load of practices that are going to get you really orgasmic, going to get you really turned on, that are going to reconnect you to your body. But one of the most important things for you to do is actually introduce as many things to turn you on throughout the day as possible. And by turn you on, it doesn't have to be sexual. It is about your coffee. Oh my God, I didn't bring it. I got a new coffee cup. Well, no, I rephrase that. I got a new teacup for Christmas because I have my 2 coffees. Samantha, my health coach, if you're watching, it's 1 coffee. 1 pot of coffee, 1 little pot of coffee. I have 1 coffee in my little cauldron, and I make it an experience. It turns me on because it's the best coffee, it's the best milk, it's the best mug. I absolutely fucking adore it. And now I have a teacup for when I move on to my herbal teas in the afternoon, and it's beautiful and it's clear and it's got an intricate design on it, and it fucking turns me on. Not as much as coffee, but still fucking good. So, jamming out at least a page, I challenge people to 50, 100 things that if you can do 100, fucking epic, because what you're then doing is expanding and understanding that there's so many things that can turn you on. I bought these. Like, it's a coaster, but it's beautiful and it's sparkly and it makes me smile and it turns me on. The more and more stuff you do that turns you on throughout the day, the better. The more you're topping up that energy, the more you're living in that low simmer that is crucial, especially when the world feels like it's going to shit, especially when you're in lockdown, especially when you've been in a long-term relationship, or you feel that the life of your dreams feels a million miles away. It's the micro actions here that make such a difference. So do this one. I'm probably going to go through every one of these practices and say, this is like the most important practice in the world, because they are, and I do them all regularly. I still write out things that turn me on in my journal. Even writing that out turns me on now. So I'm now plugging my laptop in. I've been talking for a while. So, practice 5. We're getting there. 1 practice to go after this. Daily does it every damn day. Every fucking day, just fucking do it. I'm going to say this with a big caveat of, if you didn't do it yesterday, it doesn't matter that much. It's not going to break the spell. The more you do it, the more easy it becomes, the more benefits you get from it, the more you turn yourself on, all of this magical stuff. Like, don't get caught up in it being, it is amazing and it's going to be more beneficial if you do it first thing in the morning, as Vanessa said before, or first 30 minutes, fucking epic. It's going to have a huge impact. But if you've gone into getting the kids ready for school or something shit hits the fan in work or whatever's going on, doesn't mean you don't do it that day. Drop back in later on in the day and just get it sorted. What I've included in this one here is what to do in the morning, a couple of questions to prompt you in the morning and get yourself turned on. It's all about dropping into your body. What is it? So one of the crucial things I teach is embodiment. What I mean by embodiment is the ability to notice what's going on in your body, that connection to your body in the present moment. Why? Because if you're not noticing what's going on in your body, you're not going to be able to notice pleasure. You're not going to be able to notice turn on. You're not going to be able to notice orgasmic energy. That's where it came from for me. But then really understanding that you can dive so deep in that as well. If your body constantly tells you what she needs, she's constantly giving you advice on, not even advice, just straight up direction of if this is aligned to you, this is right for you, this is going to turn you on, it's going to feel good. And she's also going to give you that feedback of when something doesn't feel good. So these journaling tools for the morning, just what you're noticing in your thoughts, what I mentioned before, that brain dump of what the fuck is going on in my head today, let it go. Physically, am I aching? Am I horny? Am I dehydrated? I'm talking a lot today, so I'm getting dehydrated. Emotionally, where you at? My thoughts and emotions always get tangled up with this. And then on a turn on, what are you noticing erotically is one way I used to write it, but I actually just narrow it down to know, it was like, how turned on am I right now? And, you know, words you can use for this is actually put, you know, you put the scale to it. I'm out of 10, where am I up to? Or it could be noticing that you're erotically, your turn on might be hungry. It might be satisfied. It might be feeling really fucking naughty. It's really understanding that by paying attention to where our body is at and asking what it needs in that moment is so crucial. Is so, like, where it all is where it all is. Does that even make sense? What this is all about is noticing and getting out of our heads into our bodies and finding as many ways to turn ourselves on as possible, starting in the morning if where possible, or at least doing this every day and setting the intention to do this every day. And if it's not happening every day, don't worry about it. Just get on and get started. If you haven't done it all week this week, doesn't matter. Start it now. Do it after we got off this call. Start it tomorrow. Whenever that is, just pick up the pen and start writing. If you are getting really stuck with this, if it feels like there's way more stuff going on and you're really looking for help with this, just reach out to me. You know, if you want to book a call, I've got some consultation spaces coming up. If you're looking for help from the sexuality side of things, yes, reach out. But what I'm going to do is guide you into this, and the sooner you start doing this stuff, the sooner we get, if you're working together with me, we're going to dive into this in, right, did that work? No, Siri's just started talking, so I don't know if that cut out. If it did, sorry, read the stuff in there. Anyway, I'll crack on. And at the end of the day, review the shit. Just pay attention to what's going on, what turned you on, what turned you off. The more information, the more we pay attention to ourselves, the easier it becomes. It just becomes automatic to notice what felt really good one day ain't gonna feel really good the next day. So I'm ploughing through because I'm a little bit aware of time. Well, I said an hour, 90 minutes. I'm gonna do training for 90 minutes. It's a good time for me. Anyway, shift your bullshit, the last one. This is so simple but so big at the same time. One of my favourite quotes, I'm going to read it out because it makes me smile. It's, turns me on. See, everything I do, filled with stuff that turns me on. You've always had the power, my dear, you just had to learn it for yourself. That's Glinda, the good witch. Glinda the good witch from the Wizard of Oz. What I'm saying here is that your turn on, your sexual energy, your libido, your orgasms, your ability to manifest and create, all of that shit's already there. It's not something we have to go and find externally. It's not something that we get from how we look or how we've been taught or how our body works, or anything like that. It's always within you all right now. It's like literally there. It's just a case of getting rid of the bullshit and the stuff that's blocking it. It's a very different, it's very, very simple flip from feeling like your sexuality, and there's a reason behind this. The reason behind this is because as women, we're not taught about sexuality. We're not taught about pleasure. We're not taught about how our bodies work. Our first levels of turn on, or really intense levels of turn on, come from our sexual interactions with another person, with our first experiences with a boy or a girl or whoever it is we fancy. And that's where we learn that this experience of turn on and sexual pleasure comes from somewhere external. Whereas actually, whatever that person is doing is just evoking this feeling that's already within us. You know, that feeling of being turned on, that, you know, the charge in your vulva, the palpitations, the butterflies, the stomach flips when we really fancy someone or when we're falling in love. All of that is an internal experience. What we get to do is start looking at the stories that are getting in the way, the bullshit that is getting in the way. So this is, I think this is something I get to do in more detail on here. And it's a big, big part of unraveling who your sexuality. And I do this in a really awesome way when I'm working one-to-one with girls is like really diving into what a sexual woman is. So what we're going to look at, for example, here is how we strip away the stories around being a sexual woman, for example. So if you're in this group, if you're listening to me now, chances are you're looking to dial up your sexuality in some way, shape or form. And to do that, you have a version of a sexual woman that you aspire to be. Or you maybe didn't even realise you did that until now, but you have this idea of what a sexual woman is. But then what we also have is the ideas of what a sexual woman is, that society has taught us, that culture has taught us, that, you know, basically it's dirty, disgusting, wrong, you're a slag, you're not worthy of love. One of my beautiful girls did this exercise, you know, in a lot more detail, but we went through this, and what she realised is that when she thought about being a sexual woman, what a sexual woman for her and her experiences were, you know, she'd grown up and her parents had split up because of infidelity, and she had this very clear vision, and it's very timely because, you know, we're all watching Love Actually at the moment, and if you're not, why not? Don't know if we can be friends if you're not up for it. Yeah, no, I can't say that. It's everyone's entitled to their own taste, but if you don't love Love Actually, I don't know if we can be friends. I'm getting silly now, aren't I? It does evolve into some sort of like, it feels like we need to have a glass of wine when we have these conversations. But understanding that view of a sexual woman was I can't remember what the girl's name, but there's the PA or the secretary who seduces the happily married man, Emma Stone's husband. How dare she? And we have this vision of her being very calculated and malicious and lonely, and, you know, other women hate her because she's so hot and sexy. And we have so many stories that go on in here that unless we actually take control of them and reframe them, our body, when we have this subconscious belief or this story of what a sexual woman is, and it's negative and it feels like it's going to be painful and scary and horrible and not nice, and we're going to lose friends and we're going to cause damage and all this type of stuff, when we have this vision, this story running in the background, we're never going to allow ourselves, our bodies isn't going to allow ourselves to step into a sexual woman, because we feel like it's something bad, dirty, disgusting and wrong. So these are some of the steps that you can do that start unraveling this. So identifying get really brutal about this. Again, this isn't for anybody else other than yourself. Is, you know, what comes to mind when you think about a sexual woman? You know, for me, it can be, you know, it used to be very much that, I'm getting used to a fringe. I'm like, you know, when someone gets extensions for the first time and they're always doing this with their hair. I'm like this with my fringe at the moment. But actually, really, you know, for me, it used to be like that Pamela Anderson had to be like porn star-esque. And then very much I had that thing of like, well, if you're a sexual woman, you're not a lovable woman. You know, you're either the girl you marry or the girl you fuck, or the you know, you're a link or a wifey, as my boyfriend used to say. It's that this definition that they're two separate things. And when I only had that ability to see someone sexual and there was no stopping me being sexual, I didn't allow myself the space to believe that was lovable and that I could be in a relationship. So these are the things when we get to really get brutal and honestly say, when I think of a sexual woman, what do I think of? Or whatever it is we're looking to step into. These tools, okay, it's always going to be sexual flavoured with me, but it's the same for anything else. You can do it from a fit person. You know, I've just read an awesome book called Fat is a Feminist Issue. You know, body image is a huge thing for women. And it's because, you know, stepping into your perception of a thin woman, when you've got a perception of that thin woman is always going to be stressing about food and worrying about food and working out constantly and is kind of hard and not comfortable and not funny, and or maybe weak, or, you know, when you've got that perception there, it's like you're not you're not going to be able to step into that because you don't want to be that person. So this is what this set of tools is all about. Mia, thank you, Tracy. Who's a lovely person, I'm sure. We can get onto an whole conversation about adultery this year as well. It's one of my favourite topics to talk about. Something we should all talk about all the time because it happens so often. Anyway, so stages of this, go through them. What are your current beliefs in it? What's the bullshit around it? What are you telling yourself about it? I've used the word, am I liberated or constructed by these beliefs? Use your desired feeling. Does it turn you on? Does it feel expansive? Is this belief expansive? Because if it's not expansive, it's not true for you. And if it isn't expansive and it doesn't feel good, use that as the reference point to reframe what does feel good. Well, what is it you want to believe? What do you choose to believe? What feels exciting? What feels true for you? And then then really being able to step into this is a case of journaling about it, writing it out, taking action towards it. But one of my favourite steps around this is understanding that beliefs aren't fixed and reminding yourself that there might have been a belief in the past, that something that you used to believe in 100%, but you now have learned something different and that belief has now changed. It might be that you used to believe all men are dicks. I've said that so many times, and actually, well, if I can keep believing that, I'm only ever going to see, my reticular activation is only ever going to see men as being dicks, so that'll be my experience. So changing that belief now allowed me to meet incredible men and get in a relationship with an incredible man who has some dickish tendencies but isn't all dick. I like that. I'm going to stick with it. We used to believe that carbs and a low fat and high carb diet was the best thing for you. We used to believe that, oh God, calories didn't matter. You can tell I'm learning about diet and stuff. It's that time of year, isn't it? I used to believe that sex meant you were a slut. Candy, love the word slut. But yeah, it's like, you used to believe that fucking Father Christmas brought you presents. We now know that doesn't happen. It comes from friends, family, yourself. Right, exactly that, Casey. When it's hard in the moment, of course it's hard in the moment because if you're surrounded by people that are behaving in that sort of way, one of the things I invite you to do is, if you seem to be surrounded by men that are always behaving like dicks, is one, start asking yourself what are the good points about them, and just reminding yourself that they may only be like 80% dick, 10% something else, whatever. They do have good things, but also then looking for evidence elsewhere. yes, loving being a slut right now. I introduced Salim's my boyfriend, by the way. Did I mention I have a boyfriend? I got a boyfriend now. I'm proud of myself. He started using the term slutting up, and he was like, what's this? And he's now a big fan of slutting up. Keeps buying me stuff. It's fucking awesome. Anyway, enjoy it. But yeah, so Katie, look for evidence elsewhere. So if it feels like everybody else around you is, look for evidence. Like for me, it was like, oh, I can't run a successful business and, teaching people about sex. So I looked at people that were running successful businesses that were about sex and especially when I started, were about just alternative things. It's that once we understand what that belief is, if it doesn't feel light and exciting to us, it's not true. So we get to reframe it. We get to remind ourselves that beliefs can change. See Father Christmas. And if you're still struggling with that, look for evidence elsewhere. Look for other people, other things, other, experiences that are suggesting that that isn't true. And then write down and reframe this and what you choose to believe instead. And repeat daily. And write it in your journal. Write it out. Script out that life that you actually choose to live. So that's all they're your prompts. Download the book. It's fucking awesome. Crack on. It's free. It's present from me to you. one of the things I promised you, I would say, which was the big difference between, you know, realising I was dating the man that I'd written out in the, or I'd moved in with the guy that I'd written out in my journal this time last year. And that combination between what is actually, what was before, what has actually happened and what's there, and what is still in progress, and the kind of language and the differences between the two. And the one thing that, what's the word, not fast tracks, but hits the accelerator on bringing in your desires is cutting out the shit that isn't aligned. It's the stuff that you are doing. So if you look at the practices that we've talked about, it would be the self-worth practices. The stuff that you are doing, or the people that you are doing, or the experiences, the kind of sex that you're having with your partner that isn't a fuck yes, isn't aligned to that, isn't that 10 out of 10, 9 out of 10, I'll let you have an 8 if you're still warming up with this stuff. The sooner you cut out the stuff that isn't, the sooner you create the space for the stuff that is right for you. The universe has this magical way of delivering stuff that doesn't necessarily always look like you expect it to, or it will deliver you a little challenge. For example, like, oh my God, there was so many things that came up for men and around men at the back end of last year. And like, this is the fun part of reading my journals. Whether they ever get published one day, who knows? I always said, like, my friends used to say, like, even before I started any of this, it's like, I needed to do a blog, and I was like, it'd have to be anonymous. It'd have to be, for legal reasons. Not so bad this time around. But when I actually sat down and went through the differences between the stuff that had come in and the stuff that hadn't, I was actually realising how many times I had to say no to the stuff that wasn't right. And obviously for this example, I'm going to use men. From the back end of last year, I was like, I am ready for something. There'd been enough going on with the business, there'd been enough traveling, there'd been enough upheavals. I would got to that place when I was like, right, yes, I am ready. And then I looked at all of this stuff and, like, you know, the stuff that was in my journal about the person that I wanted to call in. And I then looked at the external, looked at what was going on around me, what I was saying yes to that wasn't actually what I was looking for. And we had to cull off some relationships, cull off some connections. And bit by bit by bit, over, I think it was like 3 months in total. So it was while I was in Bali, and when I got back, there was a series of men that were almost little tests from the universe of going, I know you've said you want this relationship with this kind of person, and this is what I want, and you want this, this not just commitment, but this feeling of being chosen, feeling of being that person's like unquestionable number one, this, you know, amazing deep connection and the ratchet filth, all of these things, this ability to create a home, this ability to travel the world. There was at least 3 guys that just appeared that were so nearly there, but weren't quite. And there was absolutely versions of me 6 months before that, 2 months before that, 1 month before that for some of them, you know. It was like people that were really present in my life, people that appeared from nowhere, that were just almost, they were almost there. They were like a 7, maybe an 8, maybe even a 9 at certain points of time in the right light, but they weren't what I was really looking for. And because of the self-worth, and that's why we called it a self-worth conversation before, and the self-worth practices that are in here, because my self-worth and my belief in myself wasn't quite there with what I believed, what I knew I believed, what I thought I deserved, I was still accepting the stuff that wasn't quite right, wasn't quite there, until sort of November last year. It wasn't yet, it was November, it was my birthday last year, and I drew a line under some partners. That partner came back up into my life like 2 or 3 times after that, and I still kept saying no. There was a new guy, there was one of the hottest men I've ever met in my entire life, but was actually in a relationship, and it was like, it was just all of this stuff was like, oh, here's an almost, but it's not quite there. But I could easily say yeah, because it might have been even just a bit of fun for one weekend or one night or whatever it was. There was all of this potential of, oh, it could be almost there. But actually when I started saying no to it, that is when everything accelerated. So my wrap up to this, I know we've been going for a long time now, but my wrap up for this is, and the real dialing everything up, and these practices are absolutely fucking amazing and life-changing, and if you just do these, they will change your life, there's no question. It's just a case of fucking doing them. But to really dial this up now, and especially for my girls that are watching this now, that have, that have done work with me, that have done my programs and things like this, my invitation there is start looking at what you're still saying yes to that isn't a fuck yes. Because when we're still accepting stuff that isn't entirely right, entirely yes, entirely a 10 out of 10, a turn on, that stuff is taking the energetic, physical time, space of the stuff that is waiting to come in for us. So maybe start with your self-worth practice. Look at that on a whole different scale. If this is really fucking resonating with you, if this is like, oh my God, I love all this and I want to know more, and you're at a point in your life where you're ready to really step into the most confident, turned on sexual person and create a life that you really love, you just don't know how to yet, please reach out to me. I am going to be opening some consultation spaces up over the next couple of weeks, and we get to have a conversation. It's that simple. There is going to be a magical announcement over the next couple of weeks of a whole new way of working with me, So if you are interested, just drop me a love heart below on this, drop me a private message, and I will tell you details of how to book in a call with me, and we go from there. And if not, just fucking download the book and do some journaling. That's all I'm asking, all I'm suggesting. That simple. So good to be on here. Thank you so much for getting to the end. I love you guys. If you have any questions for me, if this has made sense, just drop them in the comments. I'm going to disappear off and have some food, but I will come back and check and reply. Or, if there's something you want to ask me and it's a little bit more, you're not quite ready to share it within the Facebook group yet, just drop me a message directly and we will go from there. So sending you so much love. Happy New Year, and let's just go and turn ourselves the fuck on right now. And thank you, yes. If you haven't worked with Caroline, do it. She's changed my life. Mwah. You've changed your life. I'm just giving you some guidance in the right direction. All right, my love. Mwah. Loads of love. I will see you all very soon.